Draco winces slightly as he walks down the hallway, his hand still pressed against his sore side. He continues walking, his thoughts preoccupied with the encounter he had just had with Sean. Eventually he arrives at your dorm, and after waiting a moment, he knocks gently on your door. Draco's hand is still holding his side, and a soft groan escapes his lips as he leans his head against the door, the pain in his chest growing more intense. He closes his eyes for a moment, trying to focus on breathing through the pain. Draco's eyes open and he takes a deep breath, forcing himself to straighten up as he responds. "It's me," he says, his voice rough with pain. "May I come in?" As the door unlocks and slowly opens, Draco takes a moment to look down at you, his eyes meeting yours. He stands there, leaning heavily against the doorframe, his face pale and his expression a mixture of pain and exhaustion. He winces again as he shifts his weight, his hand still clutching his sore side. Draco stumbles as he tries to maintain his balance, his usual composure faltering. He lets out a soft groan of pain, his hand still clutched tightly to his side. He glances at you, his expression strained. "I need to lay down," he says through clenched teeth, his words punctuated by short, laboured breaths. As you gently take hold of him, Draco winces but allows you to guide him over to your bed. With each step, he leans on you heavily, his body feeling weary and drained. The pain in his side and chest is evident as he struggles to maintain his composure. Draco takes a moment to catch his breath, his brow furrowing as he sinks down onto the edge of your bed. He looks up at you, his face pale and his breathing laboured. "It's nothing," he mutters, his eyes avoiding your gaze. "Just a minor run-in with someone who couldn't keep their hands to themselves." Despite his exhaustion, there's a hint of stubbornness in his gaze. "I had to teach him a lesson," he mutters, his voice low and tight with pain. He had it coming. Draco's expression darkens, a hint of irritation creeping into his tone. He looks up at you, his gaze hardening. "What's wrong with me?" he repeats, his voice a sharp edge. "What's wrong is that people like him think they can do whatever they want, to whoever they want. They need to learn that there are consequences to their actions." Draco's expression hardens, his gaze narrowing as he looks at you. He asks, his voice tinged with disbelief, "Don't tell me you actually think he loved you?" As you were about to answer, your eyes catch sight of a small, dark stain at the edge of Draco's shirt. Your expression shifts into one of concern as you realize that he is hurt worse than he had let on. Draco follows your gaze, realizing that you have noticed the small stain of blood on his shirt. He quickly tries to cover it up with his hand, but it's too late. He winces slightly as the movement seems to intensify the pain in his side. Hearing the concern in your voice, Draco sighs and slowly moves his hand away from his side, revealing the small bloodstain on his shirt. His expression is a mix of annoyance and resignation. "It's just a scratch," he mutters, trying to downplay the severity of his injury. As you rush over to sit next to him on the bed, your focus is on his shirt and the small stain of blood. Draco watches you closely, his expression still guarded but his eyes betraying a hint of vulnerability. Draco hesitates for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly at your command. He opens his mouth to protest, but the look in your eyes tells him that you're not going to let him argue. With a resigned sigh, he sets his mouth in a firm line and slowly starts to unbutton his shirt. As Draco undoes the buttons on his shirt, the fabric gradually falls open, revealing a small but vicious-looking bruise on his chest. The skin around the bruise is an angry shade of purple, and it looks sore to the touch. A small trickle of blood seeps from a scratch on the edge of the bruise. As you gently touch the area around the bruise, Draco winces slightly, his abdominal muscles tensing at your touch. The flesh around the bruise is tender and sensitive, and the wound seems to throb painfully. He looks down at the injury, his expression set in a grimace of pain and frustration. Draco nods weakly, his gaze following you as you walk over to the corner and start gathering a cloth and warm water. He leans back against the bed, his chest rising and falling with each shallow breath. The pain in his side and chest seems to throb with every movement, and his face is still pale. Draco winces as the warm cloth meets his bruised chest, the heat penetrating the sore area and causing a sharp jolt of pain. He grits his teeth, his hand clenching into a fist as you gently pat the cloth over the bruise, trying to clean and soothe the wound. Draco nods weakly, closing his eyes as he tries to hold still. His breathing is shallow and ragged as you gently work on his bruised chest, the cloth moving in slow, careful motions over the tender skin. Despite his attempt to remain still, he can't help but wince at the pain each touch causes. I know, Draco mutters, his voice tinged with regret. He glances up at you, his eyes meeting your gaze. But I couldn't just stand there and do nothing while he stops himself abruptly, his jaw clenching as if holding back from saying something else. Draco relaxes slightly as you continue to gently work with the cloth, the warm water and your soft touch bringing a small measure of relief to his injured flesh. His breathing eases a bit, but there's still a tightness in his chest from the pain. As you continue to clean his chest, Draco speaks up, his voice low and soft. "You don't have to thank me," he mutters. "I should have gotten rid of him a long time ago." His words carry a hint of bitterness, his gaze fixed on the ground. He seems to be caught up in his own thoughts, his mind replaying the events that led to this moment. Draco watches intently as you walk over to the table and rummage through the drawer, retrieving a bandage. He sits up slightly, wincing again as the pain in his side flares. "All right," he mutters, his voice slightly strained. "Do what you gotta do." Draco remains still as you approach, his gaze locked on you as you begin to wrap the bandage around his chest. His breathing is slow and measured, his muscles tensing slightly as the bandaging tightens around the bruised area. Despite the pain, there's a strange sense of intimacy in the moment. The soft touch of your fingers on his bare skin sending a shiver down his spine. You wrap the bandage carefully around his chest, making sure it is secure but not too tight. The feel of your fingers gently touching his skin, combined with the slight pressure of the bandaging, sends a strange feeling down his spine. Draco watches you intently, his gaze flickering from your hands to your face. The pain in his side seems to fade into the background as he focuses on your touch, his breathing calming. As you finish tying the bandage, Draco lets out a sigh of relief, the tension in his shoulders fading slightly. He sits up straighter, his hand gently touching the bandaged area, feeling the tight bindings around his chest. The pain is still there, but the pressure of the fabric seems to offer a measure of comfort. Draco's face softens as he speaks, his gaze fixed on yours. He seems almost vulnerable in this moment, the tough exterior he usually shows the world faltering for just a moment. "Thank you for taking care of me," he says, his voice low and sincere. Draco watches you closely as you pick up your wand, his curiosity piqued. He remains still as he watches your every move, his breathing steady and his expression guarded. "Not done yet?" he asks, raising an eyebrow. As you cast the healing spell, Draco winces slightly as the magic washes over his wounded chest. He feels a strange sensation, a tingle of energy that seems to sink deep into his skin and into his bones. The pain in his chest seems to lessen, the wound slowly beginning to heal as the spell takes effect. "That feels," Draco whispers, his voice trailing off as he feels the full effects of the healing spell. He takes a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with relative ease now. Incredible, he finishes, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He reaches up a hand to gently touch the area around the bandage, feeling the healed flesh under his fingers. Thank you, Draco responds genuinely, feeling both relieved and oddly comforted by your words and actions. He lays back on the bed, his head resting on the soft pillow. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting out a deep, satisfied sigh. As you gently pull the blankets over him, Draco sighs softly at the touch of the warm fabric on his skin, his muscles relaxing almost immediately. He snuggles into the covers, shifting his body to get comfortable. Within moments, his eyes flutter closed, and he drifts off into a deep and peaceful sleep.